Hi, this is Stu Turgel, your host for the PHOENIX File, a weekly news magazine and community conversation with the people and programs making a positive impact on the quality of life in our community. Coming up next on today's edition of the PHOENIX File, I'll be visiting with Christine Tuttle from the Arizona Talking Book Library. We'll learn how people who have very low vision or are blind or have other challenges that prevent them from holding a book and turning the pages and reading the contents can have access to tens of thousands of books and other material sent to them for free. The Talking Book Library is a barrier-breaking program that opens the world of books to those who had given up on reading. If you or someone you know is visually or physically impaired, you won't want to miss today's edition of the PHOENIX File. Coming up next, right here on Radio PHOENIX, where the Valley comes to talk, sing, connect. Good evening and welcome to the PHOENIX File. This is Stu Turgel, your host for this weekly news magazine and community conversation with the people and programs making a positive impact on the greater Phoenix community. Imagine for a moment that you loved books your entire life and you were an avid reader, but your life suddenly took an unexpected turn and all of a sudden your vision diminished dramatically. Or you became blind. Or perhaps you faced a disability that prevented you from holding a book and turning the pages. All of a sudden, one of the great joys in your life was taken away from you. No longer would you be able to read the type of books that you had always treasured. What would you do? Fortunately, there is a solution that will enable you to continue to read despite your disability. Here tonight to talk about the solution is my guest, Christine Tuttle, the outreach librarian at the Arizona Talking Book Library. Christine, thanks for being here and welcome to the PHOENIX File. It's great to have you here. You know, I've had the pleasure of representing the Arizona Talking Book Library as an outreach volunteer, which means that I go to health fairs, to expos, to community events, assisted living facilities, and home health care providers to talk about the library and what it can do to improve the quality of life for people who are unable to read books without some assistance. I also know what a wonderful service this is because my dad made use of the program in Florida before he passed away, and my aunt still makes regular use of the services in Boston. So, Christine, while I know a great deal about the library, let's start by giving my listeners what we sometimes call the elevator speech about the Arizona Talking Book Library. Elevator speech is sort of a short description of your organization, which can be done in the time it takes for a short elevator ride. So give us your elevator speech.
The library serves the visually impaired and physically limited. So in general terms, anyone who's unable to read the print, hold the book, or turn the pages qualifies for our services.
That is a short elevator speech.
Yes,
You've probably given that a lot of times over your career. How did the Talking Book Library get started, and how long has it been providing its services?
Well, the Talking Book Library is one of the many branches throughout the states and U.S. territories. So we have a network of libraries that serves our patrons throughout the United States, and many countries do have their own Talking Book Library program. Specifically for Arizona, we started in 1970, and we are in a building with the Lions Club. So very, very small building with our very, very small collection.
The Lions Club has a long-standing connection and relationship with with people who are visually impaired, doesn't it?
The Lions Club actually provides assistive technology as well as eyeglasses.
Eyeglasses, yeah.
To not only just adults but also children. Children's probably one of their biggest focuses.
Now, the Arizona Talking Book Library is part of a national network through the National Library Service and the Library of Congress. So tell us a little bit how that relationship works.
Well, the Library of Congress and the National Library Services works with each state, and for us, it's through the Secretary of State's office with the Library Archives and Public Records. And with that, most of our collection actually comes from the federal government, and then we have our own collection recorded for Arizona as well.
So most of the titles that your patrons make use of are not produced here locally.
They are produced by a professional team throughout the studios. Many of them are in East Coast, but we also have a Los Angeles section and Florida as well.
Who records the books?
For the National, it's all professional recorders, so theater people, professional readers. At the local level, it could be a stay-at-home mom. It could be a bookkeeper. It could be a retired professional theater person. Anyone who would be able to qualify by passing our auditions would be able to read for us.
Well, we'll talk about how people can volunteer in a little while, but most of the books come to our patrons through the Arizona Talking Book Library, already having been produced someplace else, either by professional voices or sometimes by the authors, isn't that right?
Some of them actually, well, most of them actually come from the publisher directly. And how it used to be is we used to have to take the hard copy and then record it. Now publishers provide a copy to the National Library Service for them to make sure it's all correctly marked up and ready for our patrons for it. But on occasion, we do have to record many of the books that are popular.
There are a lot of authors that voice the books themselves, aren't there?
Many do, yes.
It's great when you hear the author, him or herself, actually voicing the book. I think because it gets you not only the wonderful material that's in the book, whether it's a novel or something else, but you also really feel like you've connected with the author in a way that you maybe can't do when you actually read the book yourself.
Authors spend so much time invested in crafting their art, crafting their book. It would just be a natural segue for them to record that book.
It takes a lot of time.
For us, for Arizona, it takes 9 to 12 months.
Why so long? If I were to sit down and read a book, it wouldn't take that long.
Reading a book, you don't read every single word.
Right.
When you record a book, it's a very time laborious, exhausting method. You have to read every single word. You have to have perfect diction, cadence, inflection, and you have to make sure that your character voices remain consistent throughout from week to week. Our volunteers only record 1 2-hour session per week. So they have a team of people behind them making the corrections that they have to do at first, and then they start in with the new material.
It sounds challenging to sort of pick up where you left off, not so much in reading a book. Often I'll read a book and set it down and not pick it up again for days or sometimes even longer. But if you're recording the book and you're really into it and you're feeling the story, and then a period of time goes by, you've got to get back, as you said, you've got to get back into that rhythm.
Yeah, each of our volunteers, they have to have, before they finish a book or before they get the new one, they spend about a good 2 weeks reviewing the book. They have to look up any vocabulary words. We have a lot of our Arizona collection books that have either tribal language in it or Spanish words in there. They have to understand the tone of the book. And then there is someone there, a director there, minding every single word that they say. So if they didn't like what the narrator said, they push stop and start over.
Wow. So of all the books that the library makes available, do you have an idea of what percentage are have sort of a local flavor or have been recorded locally?
We record about 150 to 200 items per year, and that ranges anywhere from the locally produced books as well as magazines and newsletters. So we really have a nice breadth and depth collection of our Arizona studies.
The Arizona Talking Book Library is part of state government. So tell me, where does it fit in and how does it compare with the way talking book libraries may be organized in other states?
For us, we're under the Secretary of State's office. The program is federal, so through the Library of Congress, National Library Service, all the equipment, most of the materials come from the federal level. What is occurred at the local level is all the daily operations.
Right.
We're all master's level librarians. We have a staff of 19, and we all have to work together as a team to make sure that our services are seamless to get out to the public.
Is it typical for most? Well, I know that doesn't the federal government mandate that every state have a talking book library?
Every state and U.S. territory.
Every state and territory. So that's by federal mandate.
Federal mandate. That's how it's set up.
Let's talk a little bit about what qualifies a patron for services. What types of disabilities would a patron have that would qualify them to participate in the program of the Arizona Talking Book Library? And can you give us some examples?
What's great about our program is that it's just not age specific. A lot of people think talking book libraries, talking books in general, oh, it's only for old people. Well, we have, Clifford the Big Red Dog and Dr. Seuss books for our young readers. We have all of the major teen reads. So we have Harry Potter, of course. We have also the Twilight series, and also the, Catching Fire and Mockingbird, and all of those great goodies for people to read. And not only do we have that collection, but we also have fiction, nonfiction, biographies, autobiographies, anything that you could possibly imagine at your local public library. Think about imagining going in there and picking out your favorite section. Same thing with us, just in audio format.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what it takes to qualify to receive the books.
Oh, sure. Anyone, like I said, who is visually impaired or physically limited, again, anyone who cannot physically hold the book, turn the pages, so think of arthritis and Parkinson's disease, to the visually impaired. And so you think of all the eye conditions that would, be part of it.
So there are people whose vision may be fine, but they have some other issue going on. They may have tremors, or they may have the lack of the use of their arms and hands, and that would enable them to qualify. We often think of I think a lot of people think of the Arizona Talking Book Library, talking book libraries around the country, as just for the blind, but that's...
Think of stroke victims.
Yeah.
It might take 2 years to recover. Either they lose that print cognition because of the injury to their brains, but also the physical limitations. Half your brain has been infected, and it also affects the other side of your body.
So there are individuals that have a whole variety of disabilities. How do they evidence that to the library so that you will then accept them into the program?
Well, everything starts off with an application, federal mandate. It can be signed by their physician, their specialist, registered nurse, occupational therapist, social worker, or any librarian throughout the state. It gets mailed back to the library. You could also fax it back to the library. And then it gets assigned to one of our 4 public librarians. And then our librarians call them directly and do an interview, and the rest is history.
All right. Well, we'll talk a bit more about that after we take a break, and we'll find out more about how that relationship works between the librarians and the patrons. And we are going to take a short break here. But our listeners, that one way that you can support Radio Phoenix is by becoming one of our sustaining members. For as little as $35 per year, members receive discounts, savings, and other benefits provided by our membership program partners. And don't forget that the membership fee is tax deductible. So for more information or to sign up, you can call 480-829-5746, or you can go online to radiophoenix.org and click on the Donate tab at the top. And we thank you for your generous support of community radio. We'll be back after we take a short break and return with my guest, Christine Tuttle of the Arizona Talking Book Library. Welcome back. This is Stu Turgel, and I'm visiting today with Christine Tuttle from the Arizona Talking Book Library, and we're learning a lot about the library's services to patrons who have low vision or are blind or have other physical disabilities. Christine, you were before the break we were talking about the relationship between the librarians and the patrons, and that must be a very personal kind of experience that gets developed. How does that work?
Well, compared to other public systems, we have literally a one-on-one relationship with our patrons. Each librarian, there's 4 public The rest of us, like myself, is a master's level librarian. I actually started off in public services. So we have roughly about 500 patrons that call weekly, and we really get to know them. We do everything over the phone or through the mail. So an application gets returned, we call the patron up, verify all their information, and we find out what they like to read and what they don't like to read. So if anyone's ever gone into, for example, a food store and you meet the same people over and over, the same clerks, they get to know who you are and what your likes and what cheeses you like, what wines you like. The same thing for us. We're kind of like your reading sommeliers. And
That's a great analogy.
We find out, what we read, everything from cover to cover. So if anyone objects to anything that contains strong language, violence, or sexual content, we can eliminate all that. And conversely, if you like all that stuff, we always recommend headphones. So once we introduce ourselves, we find out what they like to read, what they don't like to read. We set them up with a player, and that's based on the conversation. That's the federal government provides it, and we assign it to a person. We also offer headphones, and we start them off with 2 books. This is just to start them out with, based on that conversation. We send out catalogs. We encourage people to talk to their friends and family, maybe join a book club, and they're able to explore the breadth and depth of the collection, or they could stay with their true loves.
That's great. How many patrons are there for the Arizona Talking Book Library?
There's roughly 12,000 patrons and about 2,000 organizations that support our patrons who we also serve, so the individual patron as well as the organization.
12,000 patrons make regular use of the library. If you had to guess, do you have any idea at all how many people might qualify that either don't know about the library or haven't been in touch with you yet?
What's great about the 12,000 people always immediately think only Metro Phoenix. We're talking throughout Arizona. We have patrons that live in Kingman and Sells and Wilcox, and if you don't have any idea where these places are, they're definitely places. A lot of them are very small. Some of them only have P.O. boxes. And then we also serve Metro Phoenix, Metro Tucson, Metro Flagstaff. So if a piece of mail could get to a person, they could get our services.
That's why it's the Arizona Talking Book Library, not the Phoenix Talking Book Library.
Exactly.
Right.
And according to, I was actually just updated, so I had 2012 statistics, and that was potentially serving, so again, the broad categories of visually impaired and physically limited was approximately 125,000 people. Went to a teachers conference, and they had 2015 statistics according to the Arizona Public Health Department. Over 300,000 people could potentially be served for Arizona alone.
So we have about 12,000 or so making use of the library currently, but if all 300,000 were all of a sudden to present themselves and ask for services, what would that mean? Obviously that's not likely to happen, but how would you handle that?
More librarians, I hope.
More librarians.
Yeah. You're always welcome to petition Secretary of State for more librarians. But our staff is so dedicated. Again, 500 dutifully call each week. We have roughly about 1,200, 12 to 1,500 per librarian.
Books, are books available in other languages other than English?
For our collection in Arizona, actually, we have books in English as well as in Spanish, but we also have a large immigrant population. Not only do we serve our citizens here and abroad, so think of those military bases that have multi-generation households, we also serve anyone coming into the country for school or work. So there's almost 200 other languages besides English and Spanish that we could derive from, and those come from the federal level.
How specialized is the equipment that people are provided?
It's the equipment that we have 2 models. Short of blowtorch proof, they're pretty indestructible. They are provided by the federal government, so it's a pretty interesting piece of equipment, really super easy to use. There's no moving parts to it. And also the headphones also come from the federal government as well. So everything's provided.
And the big question that a lot of people ask me when I tell them that I have a special interest in the library is, well, that's great. This is terrific. What does it cost me?
the magic number is you've already paid for this. Free. It took me a long time to say that word free. I used to say, provided with your tax dollars, part of your services, and always everyone was waiting for the next shoe to drop. So given being in outreach now for 7 years, I've just basically say free.
Yeah. I tell them that the total cost to them is the stamp that they have to put on the application to send it to you, because after that, the cost is free. The cost of sending the books back and the equipment, all is no charge.
All the postage is paid for. Yeah. Again, just short of that stamp.
Yeah, just that first initial stamp to get the application to you.
That, or you could fax it back to us now.
Well, that's true.
That's
you could do that, right. Without mentioning names, and would never ask you to do that, can you share a few stories about some of the patrons making use of the library whose lives really have been changed considerably since they became patrons?
Well, what's great about the library is that we not only just have books, we have magazines, we have newspapers. Now, our newspapers are done over the phone through a service called Newsline. We send everything out through the mail. So again, working with the federal government, the U.S. postal system, we could send anything out through the mail to a person. So if a person wants to read their cookbooks to their heart's content, we could line them up with anything that they want. What's also great is that we get these long-time, lifelong readers that miss their history books, that miss their, murder mysteries that they've read from long time ago. We have a lot of our seniors that come back saying, "Oh, give me the high school classics that I ignored when I was in high school. Come back and read." So we have people that have missed that love of reading and are welcomed back. And they, after giving it a try, it's very different from reading an actual physical book. But once their ears are attuned to it, they totally embrace it and are hooked. They can never get enough books.
If someone wants to volunteer, and I'm sure you're always looking for volunteers, what do they do?
You're always welcome to call the library. We're at 602-255-5578, and that's for Metro Phoenix. Outside of Metro Phoenix, anywhere throughout the state, it's 1-800-255-5578, and you're going to ask for the volunteer coordinator, and her name's Kim. So she is able to walk you through all of the various duties and tasks that we have available. They're also available off of the library's website at azlibrary.gov/talking books, and you could have your screen reader or have be able to see all of the opportunities that are available to you.
If I gave you a magic wand and said you could change it in any way that you'd like to make it better, what would you imagine improved services might look like?
I think what's really happening right now, and I think it just takes a further couple swishes of the magic wand, is that we're getting a lot of our young adults back. With the new digital technology, the player, we also have downloadable books, downloadable materials. So all those kids who had the big yellow analog players, we're finally cool and hip. They're coming back and downloading books. They're reaching out to their younger brothers and sisters and cousins, and through the schools, we all embrace it with the teachers. So the teachers are learning along with the kids, but the downloadable books have been just wonderful for everyone.
Well, we're getting close to time, and I want to make sure that if there's something that you want to add that I didn't ask you, that I give you a moment to do that. Is there anything that we missed?
Well, basically free services. Mm-hmm. It starts with an application for service, personalized service from each of your librarians. We don't even have any overdue fees. We get a call from one of our volunteers saying, "Hi, the book is overdue. Please return it." We have people that don't even have to come into our building in order to volunteer. There's breadth and depth of our collection. We really embrace any opportunity to go out and do workshops for staff, participate in health fairs throughout the state. I do have volunteers that go out in the field. And if you're ever in Phoenix and would like to take a tour of the library, you're always welcome to give us a call.
That's terrific. Christine, it's been a pleasure to have you with us tonight to help people better understand the Arizona Talking Book Library and the services that it provides. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Stu.
Right. Well, that's our show for this week. I'll be back next week, and next week my guest will be Patrick McWhorter. He's the Arizona Chair of Open Primaries. And we'll be discussing sensible election reform, which is very timely because, of course, next week's show will be on Election Day. And right after my show next week, be sure to stay tuned for Radio Phoenix, where we're going to be providing national live election coverage. So until next time, thanks to my guest Christine Tuttle of the Arizona Talking Book Library. Thanks for joining me on the Phoenix File. Thanks for listening. This is Radio Phoenix, and I'm Stu Turgel.